بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إله العالمين وبه نستعين ونصلي ونسلم على خاتم الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين. We thank Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal for having gathered us here once again. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to surround us with the malaikah and to cause His mercy and His sakinah to descend upon us and to raise us with the Anbiya alayhimus salatu was salam and those whom He has mentioned with them. Ameen. Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam was a very great Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so great in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we find there is an entire surah named Yusuf. He was betrayed as a young boy by his own blood, his brothers. So they threw him into a well, they went back to their father and they lied. They said that he has been eaten by a wolf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam was removed from this well by some people who were on their way. They were moving on their way and they went to draw some water and up came Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam. So they sold Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam as a slave, yet he was a free man, yet he was not to be sold. So they sold him as a slave. He suffered yet again. And then he enters the house of a man who had a beautiful wife. And this man was a minister in Egypt at the time. They took him to Egypt, sold him as a slave, and there he was in the house of the minister. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes what the wife of this minister did. He says, وَدَخَلَ He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَرَاوَدَتْهُ الَّتِي هُوَ فِي بَيْتِهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابَ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. And the wife of the one in whose house he was deceived him, she seduced him, she was enticed by this young man. It is said that Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam was extremely handsome. So this woman looked at him and said, I want to do the deed with him. I want to do the deed with him. So she closed so many doors between them, such that nobody would see them. And she said, come to me. This was a woman of stature who was beautiful. And it is said that she actually was enticed by Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam such that she did whatever she could to be alone with him. She bolted up to 8 doors according to some narrations. And Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam was in a foreign land, unrecognized by others, not known to the community and society. It was so easy for him to say, yes, let's do the deed. Now's the time. He was in his youth. He was strong, powerful. He could have done whatever he wanted. But he said, مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. He said, the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala I seek. I'm not going to do this with you. And he said, indeed those who are oppressors will never succeed. So he had the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within him. So he turned away from this action. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes to us. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَن رَّأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. And she inclined towards him, and he would have done the same had he not seen signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. He worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He recognized Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of his consciousness of him, it is said that Allah sent him a sign in that room. When he was all alone with that woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him a sign, such that he saw this sign and he turned away from the woman. Now it is said that the sign was a writing on the wall and the sign was this and that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept it vague. So we keep it vague as well. My question to myself and yourselves, and this is the lesson that we learn, is that if we were placed in such a situation, what would we do? What would we do? Let's sincerely ask ourselves. If I was alone, all alone, with a woman of stature, beauty, someone that I could commit the act with and gain not only the benefit of that act, but later on I would gain so much from it because she would look after me, she would perhaps spend on me, etc. I'm in a foreign land, nobody knows me. What would we do? And the reality of the situation is, we are left alone with our mobile phones a lot of the times. We are left alone with our mobile phones a lot of the times. Only us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only us and our Maker. What do we do? What is it that we browse? What is it that we go through? Do we give in to our desires? Now's the time to remember Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal, to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to go and put that phone away and say, no, I won't do it because I am with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has not left me, even though the eyes of everyone else are away from me. I'm all alone. And the Arab poet sums it up perfectly. إذا خلوت بريبة في ظلمة والنفس داعية إلى الطغيان فاستحي من نظر الإله وقل لها إن الذي خلق الظلام يراني. That when you are all alone with a doubt, something that perhaps I should do this, perhaps I shouldn't do it, then remember, feel shyness from the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over you. He's watching you. Yes, nobody sees you, but He is watching you. And then say that the one who created the darkness that is covering me right now, He is the one who sees me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the cover of the darkness, the cover of the night, the cover of your room, you being secluded with yourself. Tell yourself, the one who gave me this cover is watching me. And this is when the khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should kick in, that consciousness of Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal that actually protects us from wrongdoing. Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam said, Ma'adha Allah, may the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come between me and you. And not only that, he turned around and he ran away from her. He ran towards the door. واستبق الباب وقدت قميصه من دبر وألف يا سيدها لدى الباب قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. And they raced towards the door, she chasing after him, and she got hold of his shirt and tore it from behind. She was so much in love with this young boy that she actually tore his shirt from behind, trying to get hold of him. Come back, I want you. Allahu Akbar. But let us spend a moment here. They are both running in the same direction, But one is running to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other one away from Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal. You see the power of the khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of the consciousness of Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal. One is running to the hellfire, one is running to the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the other one running towards Jannah. Yet they are both running in the same direction. When your heart is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whom you are with. You always bear in mind that I want to please my Maker. I'm here to please Him. I don't want Him to be angry with me. And at this door, they found the master of the house, the husband of this woman. And he was there. So now the woman is put in a situation. So what does she do? She turns it against Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. What is the punishment of the one who wants evil with your family? She knew deep down that I'm the one pursuing him, but she turned it against Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. What should we do with this young man? He wanted to seduce me. He wanted to engage in haram with me. What do we do to him except punish him, a painful punishment, or we should imprison him for some time? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused a baby in a cradle that was there to speak up. And this child actually said, إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين وإن كان قميصه قد من دبر فكذبت وهو من الصادقين. That if his shirt is torn from the front, then she is truthful and he is a liar. Why? Because obviously he was pursuing her, so she was trying to defend herself, and the shirt is torn from the front. But if the shirt is torn from the back, then she is lying and he is truthful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused a child from her family to speak up. Not from his family, not from his jama'ah and his group, but from her family. You see the khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, holding that consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah puts people from the other side, from your opponent's side, to make it clear and manifest. This is who was right and this is who was wrong. Sometimes people accuse you of something you haven't done. People blame you for that which you haven't engaged in. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask and seek the protection of Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal. And in addition to this, stand up and defend yourself. Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam did not keep quiet. هي راودتني عن نفسي. She is the one who sought to seduce me. He did what was required of him to defend himself. I didn't do it. She's the one that was after me. And when the master of the house, the wife of the woman, the husband of the woman actually saw that this man is being truthful, then he turned to his wife and he said, first of all, he addresses Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. يوسف أيها الصديق يوسف أعرض عن هذا واستغفري لذنبك إنك كنت من الخاطئين. Yusuf, turn away from this. This is a sin, turn away from it. He advises him. And then he turns to his wife and he says, and seek forgiveness for the sin that you have committed. Indeed, you were from amongst the sinners. You see, he didn't allow his ego to say, this is my wife, I need to defend her. Even when she's wrong, he acknowledged that she is wrong. She needs to be told that you are wrong. Seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of times, when we have this opportunity to defend our family members, we defend them regardless of whether they are right or wrong. This is not the correct way. This is not the way of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had uncles who had turned against him, he stood up and said, what they are saying is wrong. And this is what we're required to do. Many a times you find the child comes back from school and he's done something wrong. And at times we even know what he has done is wrong. But what do? We side with the child against the school, or against the principal, or against the teacher. Why? Simply because he is my child. How can I do that to him? How can I speak up against him? No. Teach him the values of justice. Tell him that you are wrong in this case, especially when he is wrong. When the child is right, there is nothing wrong with defending him. In fact, we should defend the child. And I give this example because a child is a piece of your liver. Literally, that's what the Arabic language describes it as. He is a piece of you. So he is close to you. And you find it difficult to say, my child is wrong. But what you are doing is you are indoctrinating that child with the wrong belief system, the wrong compass of morality. That child will go on to believe in his life that I am never wrong. I'm always right. Why? Because the parents instilled in him, when he was wrong, no, you defend yourself. No, you stand up. Here, this man was honest. He said, وَاسْتَغْفِرِي لِذَنْبِكِ إِنَّكِ كُنْتِ مِنَ الْخَاطِئِينَ. You were from amongst those who were sinning. You were wrong. So turn against, own up to your mistake and seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Later on, the women of the city began to blame this woman. They said, قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا إِنَّا لَنَرَاهَا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. This young man has inflamed her with love. She's infatuated by him. She is enticed by him. So the woman thought to herself, and she invited them to a meal and put some fruit in front of them and gave them knives and said, Yusuf, come into the room, enter into the room. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam enters the room, and these women cut their hands from the beauty, the handsomeness of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. They actually cut their hands. They didn't realize what they were doing. This is how handsome Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was. So this woman wanted to prove to them that, look, you are blaming me for something, but look at what you are blaming me for. In fact, they said that this is an angel. These women said, this is an angel. This is not ma hadha bashara. In hadha illa malak. This is an angel. That is how handsome Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was. What is the lesson that we derive? Sometimes we judge a person that is sinning. We judge them and we think that, how can that person do this? But we don't understand the situation that they are in. She is in a home that is so close to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. She's in the same home as him. She sees him day in, day out. So she's being enticed by him. Now, I'm not saying what she's doing is right. I'm not saying what she's doing is correct. But we sometimes don't empathize with the sinner simply because we are not in their shoes. So in order to give them da'wah, in order to invite them, we must place ourselves in their shoes first and foremost. Understand what they are going through. Don't do what they are doing, but imagine if you were in that situation, how you would want someone to correct you, how you would want someone to come to you and say, this is wrong, brother or sister, whatever it may be. So, place yourself in the shoes of the sinner and then go out and advise that person. Brother, sister, I know that it is difficult. I know it is hard for you to get rid of this. But the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better for you. Jannah is better for you. This is better than going to the person and saying, hey, what you're doing is haram and you're going to Jahannam. Allahu Akbar. That's not the way to correct a person. So the lesson that we derive, put yourself in the shoes of the sinner, put yourself in his situation and understand what he is going through, and then ask yourself how you would want to be corrected and correct him in that manner. Later on, this woman decided, in fact, she actually told these women that وَلَئِن لَّمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونًا مِّنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. That if he is not to do what I am commanding him to do, if he is not to engage with me, I will imprison him. He will be imprisoned for some time. And this is exactly what happened. So she knew what she was doing was wrong. She admitted it to these women of the society and community, and now she is brazen and open about her sin. If he doesn't do it, I will cause for him to be imprisoned. When the people began to talk, and the community and society was saying this is what's going on, they realized that they needed to imprison Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Why? Because if we don't imprison him, they will say the wife of the minister is doing wrong. The wife of the minister is actually trying to seduce this young man. So despite the facts being out there, despite people knowing what was right and what was wrong, they decided to do the wrong thing and imprison Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. But this was all part of the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. When he saw that I only have two options here, I either commit the wrongdoing and go with this woman, or I am imprisoned. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. رَبِّ السِّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُن مِّنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. He said that, my Lord, the prison is more beloved to me than that which they are inviting me to. The prison is more beloved to me than that which they are inviting me to. And if you don't turn this away from me, asbu ilayhin, I will go to them. I know myself. I'm now at that point where I'm about to do the wrongdoing. Ya Allah, protect me from it, regardless, even if this means I go to the prison. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was protected from haram by him being imprisoned. And later on we see that all of this was a journey. And it was a journey that resulted in him being raised to the level of leadership, his name being cleared. His name was completely cleared later on in the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. The most important lesson that we want to learn from this today is that when you keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart, and you keep him first and foremost, and he is the one that you consider first in every decision in your life, in every decision in your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you to where you need to go to. Sometimes he may not give you what you want. Obviously Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam did not want to be imprisoned. Nobody wants to be imprisoned. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala imprisoned him in order to later on raise him up to the level of leadership. So he was given more than his heart's desire at the end of the day. When you keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your first port of call, the first being that you consider in your life, احفظ الله يحفظك. When you protect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his commandments, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects you. Do this in your life and it will be the formula of your success, not only in this world but in the akhirah as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the first being that we consider in our lives. Ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.